And now from Washington, the Inside Scoop. All the news the government does not want you to hear. Now, here's your host on the Inside Scoop, Mark Levine.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. The problem of outsourcing, of course, is nationwide. There are all kinds of American jobs being brought over abroad. But what does it affect the consumer? We know how it harms American workers. Heck, they lose their jobs. How is the consumer harmed? How are you harmed if you buy a product? Some would say, hey, you can buy it more cheaply. Well, in the Washington, D.C. area, they're exploring the case of whether the gas company, Washington Gas and Light, should outsource a number of jobs in the Washington area, some perhaps to West Virginia, but probably overseas to places like India, the Philippines, and other places. They have filed a request with the Public Service Commission to increase your rates because they say they need to charge more for you to take the jobs overseas. If you don't understand this, you know what? I don't either, but my guests here are going to try to explain it to you. Sitting to my far right is Sam Weinstein. Now, Sam Weinstein is with the National Utility Workers Union of America. He's the assistant to the national president of that. Sam, welcome to the Inside Scoop. Sitting next to him is Dan Dyers. He is the president of Local 2 of the Office of Professional Employees International Union. And sitting to my immediate right is Sarah Stahl. She's a staff representative and recording secretary for Local 2. All of you, welcome to the Inside Scoop.
Thank you for having us.
Before we get to the specifics of what's going on with Washington Gas, let me start with you, Sam, about the national issue. Are utility jobs being sent overseas, and what's going on with that?
There is clearly an attempt to do that from some utilities. But the first thing that I should say is a utility is not a commodity, doesn't sell a commodity like any other commodity. Gas, water, and electricity are just not like television sets and other things like that. People depend on them, need them as a necessity of life. They're not something which you can exchange or
if my VCR breaks, I can take it back.
That's
if my
right.
gas explodes,
you're not around anymore. It's as simple as that.
I see.
And so we are very concerned, and there is a real connection between the interests of the workers in the industry and the interests of consumers. And so we have gone all the way across the country from place to place, fighting not only outsourcing, but the reduction of services at utilities. And this we consider, and one of the reasons that we're helping Local 2 here, is because we consider this to be a massive reduction in services to consumers.
Well, no, it's interesting when you talk about reduction in services, Dan, because one of the things that I think many Americans dislike is it used to be 10 years ago, if you called your gas company, your water company, electric company, you got a human being. I remember those days. I'm old enough to remember when I actually spoke to a person. Today you call and press option 1 and press option 2, and usually they don't even tell you that 0 sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you hit it and you have to go back and listen to all of this again. Does what Washington Gas wants to do in outsourcing in India, does that also decrease the effectiveness of responding to customer calls?
Absolutely. Number one, the calls are now being taken in a foreign country, thousands and thousands of miles away. There are cultural problems, there are language problems. The people that are taking the calls in the foreign countries are not nearly as well trained, and they're certainly not as well managed as the people at Washington Gas.
It's interesting, you talk about people in foreign countries. Mad TV, and I have to give them all credit, did a wonderful little spoof, but I'm afraid it may not be too far from the truth. I want to play this clip for you, give them the full credit, and see what you think about their rendition of outsourcing.
I woke up in the middle of the night, terrified. And then I realized George Bush only had 2 years left. But no, it was an intruder trying to come into our house. Fortunately, we had an ADG security system. They were immediately in communication from their home office.
Mrs. Parker, this is ADG. Goodness gracious, we are receiving an alarm. Are you all right?
Yes, we're all right, but we're quite frightened.
One moment, please. Hello? Oh, I am so sorry you're in Jamaica in your underpants, but we are doing our very best to locate your luggage. Thank you for choosing Air Canada. So, Mrs. Parker, ADG is monitoring your emergency situation.
Someone is trying to break in. I can hear them on the roof. I think they just got the cat. Send help!
Can you hold again? I have another call. Hello? Yes, that includes the high-speed modem and Bluetooth capability. Thank you for choosing Dell Computers. Mrs. Parker, are you still alive?
You have to help me!
I will be most happy to help you, but first I have to answer the other line. Hello? Oh, my word, yes. We can have it to you in less than 1/2 hour. And thank you for choosing Big Pepperoni Pizza. Hold on. Yes. Yes, the girl will be in your motel in 15 minutes. And thank you for choosing Corky's escort service. Are you still there, Mrs. Parker?
Yes, I think he's gone. Everything's all right now. I don't need help.
Okay, we will send someone over right away.
No, I don't need help anymore.
You're safe now, ma'am. We got him.
ADG Security. You're just a continent away.
ADG Security, we're just a continent away. I mean, we laugh, it is funny, and also it's kind of scary. I mean, if you had an intruder in your home, or you had a gas leak, in the case of a gas main being broken, my understanding is, Sarah, maybe you can help me on this, but if you have a gas leak in your home, you light a match, or you turn on your stove, or...
Open your cell phone.
Open your cell phone, my God. You could be in big trouble. So, we laugh, but we certainly don't want someone who's handling other jobs in New Delhi, India, Dell, and other things to control what could be a very serious situation.
Right, and that's one of the reasons we've stressed that the employees here are well trained. They get lots of training before they start in the call center. The supervisors are trained. The supervisors monitor their calls.
What kind of training do they get?
They get several weeks of training before they're on the phone. And then they also have the supervisors there and monitoring things that are going on.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, people in India can get training too. Do local workers know more? It's obvious. I guess it's obvious. But do local workers know more about the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area than, say, the good people of New Delhi, India?
Absolutely they do, because they live in this area. They're your neighbors. They're the people that live down the street from you. And the training they get is a minimum of 8 weeks training, but then they go on the board, monitored, and it's not just monitored, that's part of their training. That's how they gain experience. Most of the people that are on the phones right now have got at least 2 years experience, and they learn the gas industry as well as how to handle the calls. And that's very important, because somebody who's handling, as we saw here, pizza calls and probably Dell and whatever, those are people that may answer the phone and they have a limited script. And if what you're calling about isn't in that script, there have been thousands and thousands of complaints that these people have no authority to do anything but what's on the script.
It happens to me all the time. I mean, and when I call for my computer, I call and I hear this, what is clearly scripted lines. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's this problem. And they're like, if you're having a problem with da-da-da-da, I'm like, no, I already told you it wasn't that. Well, is it? I already told you it wasn't that. And we never get anywhere. Tell me, are utility workers just nationally, Sam, are they trained to handle a variety of situations? Or are they mostly given scripts?
No, they're obviously given a general script with which to work. I mean, that's natural. But what happens is, over a period of time, you develop an ear, right? And workers in the industry, I used to be a field worker myself at a gas company. I come out of a gas company. And you develop an ear listening to the customer, and you hear what's going on, and you hear where there's a potential problem. Sometimes people don't know to identify it as a leak, right? They use certain words, and you can gather because you have the experience. And what you will find with utility workers and utility companies, it was a tradition that people came into the industry and they stayed for long periods of time, many, many years. And a lot of the people in Local 2 have a lot of seniority. Right.
So experience matters, because
experience matters.
If
it's not only the 8 weeks.
Everyone at minimum wage or less, I guess, in Bangalore, India, then they don't know what to listen for.
And one of the things that you find with the contract workers, which is what they're trying to do, is the turnover is more than 50 or 60%, which means that you cannot expect anybody to be there for more than a few months, maybe a year or two. These are not long-term employees, and I don't care whether it's in West Virginia, Southwest Virginia, or whether it's in Bangladesh. It doesn't matter.
Bangladesh is even worse because there's cultural problems with understanding the language and things like this.
Mark, and I had one thing on that. Sam was exactly right. The call center jobs are usually some of the higher graded jobs. We have a grading system from grade 1 to grade 8. The call center is grade 7. These people come in and they come in at the lower graded jobs. They learn the industry.
This is the second to the highest grade.
Second to the highest grade because it's a stressful job. It requires a lot of knowledge. These people, most of my members have worked their way up through other jobs, learned the gas industry, learned the gas business, and now they're on the phones, and now they bring a lot of experience in the gas business to the phones with them.
Yeah, and the point I was making was, that contract workers tend not to stay very long because they get paid so little.
Right.
And it's so stressful.
And it doesn't matter where you are because the contractors always do that.
Now, Sarah, I'm asking you to speak up really loudly. You're kind of soft-spoken, but it sounds to me like Washington Gas is claiming that they're going to save money by outsourcing, and yet they're seeking a rate increase.
They are, and the rate increase they're seeking is to help cover the cost of sending this work elsewhere.
Okay, so that they say, we're going to save money by firing all these Americans and hiring all these people at Indian wages, but we need to have a rate hike to the consumer in order to do that.
Right. The estimated costs of the outsourcing are over $32 million.
$32 million for the outsourcing?
37 million. Part of that is to pay for the initial outsourcing, the cost to set up. Part of it is to pay for the severance packages for the people who will leave. It's the transition. They're asking the ratepayer to pay for the transition that they haven't decided whether they're going to do yet.
And in Virginia, Dan, you were just telling me before the show, they've already raised our rates without even getting permission.
In September, they applied for a rate increase in Virginia. The hearing on that won't take place until April 27th, but the January 1st, your rates went up 3.94%. And what the company said is, well, if we don't get the rate increase, we'll give the money back.
So we're going to take the money now because you don't need your own money, and if we stole it from you illegally, we'll give it back. Very nice. I mean, this is a monopoly. It's supposed to be regulated. Who's regulating these people?
The Public Service Commission of the District of Columbia, the Public Service Commission in Virginia, and the Public Service Commission in Maryland.
And how are they doing in terms of regulation?
Well, in Maryland, they're not doing so well. They've already passed through this performance-based rate increase. It's like an automatic increase every year. The company has agreed that they won't go for another rate increase for 3 years, and then you read the small print and it says, well, unless there's some problem that comes up that we didn't anticipate, and then we will go for a rate increase. An example is in Prince George's County, there was a house explosion. There was a lot of leaks over there, and they've traced it to a coupling that the gas company installed in that area. Well, and we think in other areas as well. People smelled gas over there. The contractors from Local 96, the Teamsters, not the Teamster members, but the contractors, went out, couldn't find the problem. The house exploded, then they found the problem. So what we're getting is...
After the house exploded?
After the house exploded.
Was anyone hurt?
No, fortunately they weren't. But of course, if you've ever seen a gas explosion, there's not much left of a house.
Let me give you another way in which this sometimes happens. I was involved in a similar campaign in Detroit where we actually managed to force the company to stop the contracting out that it was planning. But part of the reason that we were able to do that is because unfortunately some people had died.
You know what? I want you to hold that story until after the break because obviously it's more than an issue in Virginia, Washington, Maryland. It is a national issue. I want to hear about Detroit. I also want to hear from callers. Do you agree with this decision? Do you disagree? Do you like outsourcing? Do you think it saves you money? Do you think that this is something that they shouldn't do? The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. You can also comment on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com. We'll be right back after this.
History has demonstrated that violence only begets greater violence, and injustice only begets greater injustice. This is not the tradition of our great nation. This is not how we want the United States to be known around the world. We have another tradition that we think ought to prevail. one that is more just and more powerful. There is a better way. If we truly want peace and security, then we must work hard for justice. If you're concerned that we've become a nation whose national policies are grounded in beliefs that are centered on a line embedded in BS, then don't miss Escape from Orwellia Nation, a talk show in which concerned regular citizens like you and me, not self-serving media spinmeisters, wade through the barrage of newspeak and doublethink that pollutes public discourse today. Big brother, big business, big media, and the big national parties who collude to keep we the people afraid and in the dark would prefer that you not watch. Show them who's in charge. Tune in to Escape from Orwellia Nation right here on Channel 10.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. The topic is outsourcing, whether it's your local gas company or any company. Should American jobs go abroad? And if so, how does it harm the consumer? We know how it harms workers. How does it harm the actual consumer? The companies say they're saving money, but where is that money going to? My guests are sitting to my right is Sarah Stow. She's the recording secretary for the Local 2 of the Office Professionals Union. Sitting to her right is Dan Dyers, the president of Local 2, and sitting to his right, the assistant to the national president of the Utility Workers Union of America, Sam Weinstein. Now, Sam, you were telling us before the break that in Detroit there was a similar situation. What happened?
Yeah, they were, Detroit Edison was trying to outsource the call centers as well.
That's the electric company or the gas company?
Well, it's both.
Okay.
In Detroit, it happens to be a combination. And they were trying to outsource as well. And sometimes it's not obvious how the problem is going to arise. But in this case, how it arose was, in one case, a family got their gas turned off.
Hopefully not in wintertime.
Well, it was pretty cold. Yes, it was pretty cold. They finally paid the bill, had asked for it to be turned back on, but the call they made was to the contractors. And in the meantime, they used a little propane heater to try and keep warm, right? Unfortunately, the thing didn't work very well, and they asphyxiated.
Wow.
They just died. A man
and they'd even paid their bills.
And they had paid the bills. But because there was a lack of coordination between the contractor and the utility, the connection was not made and the gas was not turned back on.
Wow. Now, of
and
course,
they weren't found for 5 days.
Whew. Now, hearing that, I think as a lawyer, there must have been a big lawsuit.
There probably was. There was a settlement, and so everything was kept
and the thing about that
quiet,
is that the ratepayers have to pay for that settlement too. I mean, you want to honor the victims, you want to pay them, but you know, the ratepayers have to pay for that for their own mistakes.
Yeah, and I have
penny wise, pound foolish.
Yeah, and I have to say this. You know, Detroit is a poor city. There are a lot of poor people in the city of Detroit, and that's also true for the city of Washington, D.C. And there are going to be people who are shut off.
Sure.
And if you don't have that kind of coordination all the way through, then you're going to have problems where people are just going to die.
And also, there's a certain compassion, I think, that comes when you have someone who lives there. You know, someone who lives in your neighborhood can deal with the problem, can maybe say, you know what, I know you're really in need, let me talk to my supervisor, rather than someone saying in Bangalore, India, I'm sorry, sir, but that's all we can do for you, have a good day. My understanding is that the call centers, there's actually a time limit where they say you have to get off the phone a certain amount of time?
In call centers, contract call centers, the average is about 3 minutes per call. If you call with a billing problem and they can't handle it in 3 minutes, they're going to get you off the line and you're going to have to call back. That's not true at the gas company. At the gas company, our members are there to serve the public. They're there to resolve the problem before they hang up, and they don't care how long the call takes. If you've got a call about turning your gas on, turning it off, get your bill adjusted, whatever it is. People call in and say, I'm having trouble paying my bill. The Local 2 member there, the customer service rep will help them to come up with a budget plan so that they can pay it.
Now, Dan, here's something I don't understand. I mean, gas is a monopoly. This isn't like, buying a new car where you have thousands of choices. I can only get my gas from one company. I can only get my electricity from one company, my water from one company. Because it's a monopoly, and it's a natural monopoly, it's one of those monopolies where it wouldn't make sense to have 20 different gas pipes connected to every home. The government regulates it, and they regulate the rates that consumers pay. They regulate. Why isn't the government stepping in here?
Well, we wrote to all the public service commissions in this area, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. D.C. said they were looking at it, and they're going to take, hopefully they're going to take our intervention and let us testify before the commission when the hearing comes up. Virginia contacted us and said, well, we don't really care if they outsource, and unless there's a problem, we're not going to look at it. But if there's a problem, then we'll look at it. So the first person to die, the first house to explode, then it'll become a problem in Virginia.
Now, it wasn't like they were rejecting, or accepting the outsourcing. They weren't even listening to you. They wouldn't even let you intervene the legal way to have you make your case.
Exactly.
They said, we don't want to hear your case.
Exactly.
I mean, it's one thing to hear someone's case and say, you know what, I disagree. They wouldn't even hear you.
Right. Don't want to hear that. They're not interested. And interesting, going back to the point you made, Mark, about it being a monopoly, there was a survey done of Americans about how would you feel about a company that outsourced to a foreign country, somebody like Dell or somebody, Hewlett Packard. And 65% of the people surveyed said, I would find another company to deal with. You can't do that with the gas company. If you don't buy gas from them, there's nobody to buy it from.
So now, my understanding is they want to use a company called Accenture.
Yes, it's one of the companies they're looking at. IBM is the other company.
Okay, well, I know about IBM. Tell us about Accenture. Sarah.
Accenture is formerly Arthur Andersen Consulting.
Oh, the old Enron, people who hid the books there. Nice.
Right.
Nice.
And
Another gas company.
Right. They're located in Bermuda, Bahamas. Bermuda. They're there because they don't want to have to pay U.S. taxes.
Oh, great. So we lose tax money, too,
right.
Just as we taxpayers are paying more money to send our American jobs overseas.
Yes.
They also don't pay taxes in Bermuda.
Oh.
They don't pay taxes.
Right.
Yeah, taxes. They're for weenies, right? They're for like workers and ordinary Americans who earn minimum wages. CEOs, rich people, they shouldn't have to pay taxes.
They earned revenue of about $32 billion last year, and they were required to pay $87,000 in an administrative fee to Bermuda. That's it.
Right.
And that's all they had to pay.
So they take $8 million out of our area in wages, and they pay nothing back in taxes. They also can't be sued.
Because they're in Bermuda.
Right, not by their stockholders.
So if people get blown up in a house or die from a propane heater, oh well, that's just the risks you take. And this is amazing stuff. Are y'all organizing? I mean, are you striking? Do you having picket signs? What can Americans do listening into this? Because we're not hearing a lot of news about this.
Well, what we're doing is we're getting ready for our testimony before the Public Service Commission, which should be July or August of this year. We're running a petition campaign, and anybody who would like to sign our petition, I encourage you to go to our website. It's sosatwgl.com. I'm sorry.
WGL, Washington Gas and Light.
And you can sign it.
WGL.com.
You can sign the petition
SOS
online.
is Save Our Services.
Save Our Services.
Right.
WGL.
Now, let me ask you, because it's obviously not just a question of Detroit. This is a national problem, isn't it, Sam? Can you give me some other instances across the country?
Yeah. We also fought similar situations in California and in New York successfully. In both of those situations, they were trying to close the payment offices, which is something that Washington Gas tried by itself a couple of years ago. And again, the union had to intervene, and it was one of the ways that we got it stopped. And
because not everyone can pay on the internet. Not everyone has internet
That's right.
access.
Again, it's a question of dealing with very poor people, sometimes with immigrants, people who don't have checking accounts, and so on. Those are the people who need the services, whether they're doing it on the phone or whether they're able to do it in person. Whatever it is, those are the people who really need it. And I always have to make the point, 80% of the people who are going to be laid off under this are going to be women, and 95% of them are going to be people of color. And at Washington Gas, when you lay off 80% who are women, that means most of the women who work at Washington Gas are looking at being laid off. That is the biggest group of women at the gas company, right? And we expect utilities to reflect the population which they service.
You would think, but now let me ask you this. In California and New York, you managed to stop this.
Yes.
In Michigan, you failed to stop it. Someone died, a whole family died, I guess, and then they brought it back?
No, we didn't fail to stop it. They unfortunately had contracted out some of the work before we launched our campaign.
I see.
They wanted to contract out all the rest of it. We managed to prevent the further contracting out of the work.
I see. So
And
they
we're
did that,
working
they did
on-
that without you noticing it. They snuck that
They
away.
kind of snuck some of it in, but
But
we're working on getting the rest of it back.
I see. Now, I'm just
'Cause we wanna
so
protect
basically, every
consumers.
campaign you've done has been successful so far. I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to crow because this is a very important one here. We don't want to lose it here. But,
Absolutely.
But this is something that
Yes, and
really
I
would
want
be the first time that they were successfully fire all these Americans, bring gas over to India as an attempt to, I don't know, an experiment, I guess, on us.
Yeah, and part of the point I want to make in relation to that, because you're absolutely right. When we intervene, when we as unions intervene and organize people, we are usually successful in a situation like this because it's very difficult for the very people who are most affected by these cuts to organize themselves. They live in separate homes, they don't necessarily know each other, and so on. We know what's going on. And so what's happening here is the unions are spilling the beans and not letting the companies do this by sleight of hand behind consumers' backs. And so we're very concerned that we're drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, you're not going to cut services to consumers.
And what's striking here is that it's not just the workers, but the consumers themselves that can suffer. And I'm just, it's amazing to me when you look at companies like Accenture or if it weren't for you, if it weren't for the unions, is anyone addressing this? I mean, the Public Utilities Commission, D.C. at least is listening to you.
Yes.
But before you intervened, were they taking this seriously? Were they going over it?
Well, I think they'd only heard from the company because that's usually how it happens. They start a rate increase case. The company puts its case forward. Then they schedule a hearing for others to participate. But no, I don't think there's any organized opposition to this except coming from the union.
Most people don't know.
Right.
And that's why we're trying to provide the information to you. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. What do you think about outsourcing? How has outsourcing affected you? You can also comment on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com. We'll be right back after this.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Let's impeach the president for lying.
My name is David Bell. I am a resident of Virginia's 11th Congressional District, and I ask Representative Tom Davis to initiate or support investigations into violations of the law by President Bush and his administration.
Tom Davis, my name is Jean Reynolds, and I'm one of your constituents. I want you to join immediately with other members of Congress to begin an investigation of the criminal acts that George Bush has committed.
I'm Nick Spengler of Ashland, Virginia, and I would like our troops to come home and Bush to get out of office.
My name is Nancy Maynard. I live in the 11th Congressional District, and this message is for Tom Davis. I'm asking you to please investigate for impeachment.
My name is Bruce Smith. I live in the 11th Congressional District in Woodbridge, Virginia. I want Congressman Davis to support the investigation of President Bush and Vice President Cheney and those that foisted this war on us.
Hello, Congressman Davis. I'm Carrie Plonson from the 11th Congressional District, and I'd like you to take immediate action to investigate George Bush and his offenses in leading this country into a war that's unwarranted and there is no solution for.
We have to impeach. I am just appalled that we would not, quote, waste our time with impeachment. The message to the world has to be that Bush and Cheney are guilty of international war crimes about which we can't do anything. We can do a lot about the crimes committed within the U.S. Constitution.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. We're discussing outsourcing. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. You can also comment on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com, and we have a comment under today's show, and it's from Joyce, and she asks, when a call center is outsourced to India or Manila, have the call center employees been through a security check? Have there been any cases of identity theft that you are aware of? Who wants to take that?
I'd like to. I know of two cases. One, 12 employees in a call center in Bangalore, India, were arrested for stealing money from Citicorp out of England. They took the identity of these people, they transferred that back to their associates in the United Kingdom, and they lost about $385,000 before these people were caught. A recent case just happened. A gentleman named Nazim Kazmiri was arrested finally because here's what happened. He was hired by a call center in India. He was there for approximately 8 months and stole the identity of 20 people, shipped it back to the United Kingdom. Again, this was the BSCH Bank in England. They stole $424,000 from the accounts. When they finally caught on to that he was doing this, they went to his home, but when they got there, he didn't live there because he'd put a phony address and a phony phone number on his job application. He also didn't put down that he had worked for Accenture before he came to work here.
Oh, great. The same company that Washington Gas wants to go to.
Exactly. They finally caught him, and now action's being taken against he and his associates in the United Kingdom. But I think this brings up a problem. The gas company, Washington Gas, when they hire somebody, they do background checks. There's drug testing based on the fact that they're a natural gas utility. These people are checked out and monitored and vetted, and this doesn't happen in Indian call centers. At least it didn't in this one. And I think it's interesting to note that...
And there'd be no way to know if it did, because there'd be no regulation, right?
Exactly.
I mean, doesn't the government require this background check for gas workers?
Well, they require drug testing. I'm not sure about the gas...
They require the drug
probably
testing.
do, yeah.
But I think it's interesting to note that the call center in India saved, they said, $215 by not doing the background check. And it ended up costing these people $424,000.
And these are just ordinary consumers that just gave their Social Security number, I guess it is, to the gas company?
Account numbers, passwords.
I mean, I paid my gas account. I paid for my bank account. They know my bank account.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
It is. It is. And
they
all
can
that
just take my money out of my bank account?
And all that data will be shipped over to wherever they're doing this. Gangs are infiltrating these call centers in India, and the Bangalore police have said that they believe terrorists will be targeting these call centers. They're going to bombings and blackmail. Gangs over there will get a low-paid person working in these call centers and either buy them or intimidate them into turning over this data.
It's interesting to me because I think Bangladesh was one of the companies that was mentioned. Is that right? Or
no, Bangalore in India.
Oh, Bangalore in India. Okay, the Philippines. It's mentioned.
Manila in the Philippines.
Because I know that there are Al Qaeda operatives in India and the Philippines. Certainly that, and I would think that if you work for 10 cents a day or whatever they're paying you over there, you'd really love to sell this data for what could be a princely sum there, maybe only $100 to us.
The really scary part is that this is just the beginning. If they do this, then they're going to take our mapping. They're going to know where our lines are.
Oh, that's
this
right.
is the nation's capital. All these gas lines are underground. And how are we going to protect the people of this country when foreign countries who have clearly had gangs infiltrate these call centers now have all our information?
You know, in Great Britain, they have a day they called Guy Fawkes Day. They celebrate it where they stopped Guy Fawkes from blowing up the Parliament with gas. I mean, there are gas lines in the Capitol. I know. I used to work there. They're, I don't know where they are, but somebody knows where they are. The gas company, I'm sure, knows where they are. I don't even want to think about how easy it is to blow up our nation's capital.
And this is not a company that's poverty-stricken.
No.
They're making nice profits.
They're making very nice profits. The CEO...
How much is he making?
He makes approximately $4 million a year.
$4 million a year.
I don't know how long it would take you to make $4 million, but it would take me quite some time.
It would definitely take quite a while.
Yeah, and I think it would take most of the customers.
And I assume he'll want to
Gas.
get a bonus for getting rid of all these jobs.
Well, and he's also the president of the National Gas Association.
So he's going to spread this around the country.
Right. So
so this is becoming a national thing. If he succeeds in his own backyard, every one of you across the country will have a gas problem.
Right.
It's interesting. I just found out, it's apparently just breaking news, that Halliburton, a company that has taken literally tens of billions of dollars of our taxpayers' money. I mean, think about it, friends. When you pay taxes, just set aside 10%. That's Halliburton's money. They're now moving to Dubai. I don't know if you've heard this. It just came in. This company, the Dick Cheney's company, our vice president's company, is more loyal to Dubai than to the United States. But hey, you know, Bush and Cheney, they wanted to outsource our security at our ports to Dubai. What is it about our administration or the National Republican Party where they really want people from Dubai or from India or the Philippines to control our security? I don't understand what they're even thinking.
It's all about the money.
It is. I think what they're doing is they're taking the lowest cost bidder, the cheapest that can possibly be done. The quality of the service be damned. If it can be done cheaper over there, let's get it done cheaper. And if we lose a few people, it's a cost risk estimate that they're willing to take because they're not the ones that are going to be in danger.
I was reading in your materials that the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, the government, recently outsourced their information, their social service call centers to Accenture.
They did. And
sounds like something Texas would do. What happened in Texas?
They had a contract for the Health and Human Services, children's health insurance, poor children's health insurance, Medicaid, and things like that. The contract was for $899 million. That contract has already gone over $1 billion. They outsourced the work, and what they found is that 79,000 children enrolled in Medicaid were dropped. 10,000 parents covered by Medicaid were dropped. And 21,000 children in the Children's Health Insurance Plan were dropped.
Just by accident?
Well, they're still investigating to find out. They've had to stop implementing this program to try to get control over what's going on. Interestingly,
so now no one in Texas gets this Medicaid?
Well, no, one area is still doing it. It's a combination of their employees and Accenture, but Accenture's got the majority of it in these areas, but they're not expanding it to other areas until they get these problems resolved. The call times, when you call the call centers for Medicaid and the Children's Health Program, there was an average of a 22-minute wait per call. 40% of the calls were dropped.
40% of the
calls were dropped. This a top lawyer.
And this is the company that would take over Washington Gas.
Yes, very likely.
Hello, I'm smelling something in my house. Click, and that's after I've been on hold for I don't know how long.
There's a great quote. One of the top lawyers for Texas Health and Human Services said, "Yeah, things suck with Accenture, but they feel that they're stuck with them."
Now, why would anyone be stuck with them? This is a regulated company. I mean, let's lay it on the line. It is Public Utilities Commission. They are appointed by the governor. The governor, Tim Kaine, is a Democrat. He's a good guy. He's been on my show. He tends to be pro-union. Y'all gotta have close ties to Tim Kaine, right? Well, what's going on? Give me the inside scoop. Are you pressing him? Is he too worried about a Tyson's Corner tunnel to focus on this?
We've contacted Kaine. We've contacted all the politicians in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. The ones that don't want to get involved say, "Oh, we contacted the gas company, and they haven't made the decision yet." Well, I can guarantee you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and the other one is they'll say to the politicians and the Public Service Commission, "Local 2 is just trying to drag you into a labor dispute, and you don't want to be involved in it." There is a labor dispute. There absolutely is, but the question is much, much bigger than that.
Well, but there are no consumer advocates. I mean, even Ralph Nader seems to worry more about running for president these days than what he used to do. There are no consumer advocates, are there? I mean, the unions are workers' advocates, and we're glad you're here. But consumers,
well, and
what do we have?
And when we try to be consumers' advocates, as we are in this kind of case, the company's position is opposition to our intervention. Right. They're trying to prevent us.
On the ground that you don't represent consumers.
On the grounds that they don't want to hear what we have to say. They don't want the public to hear what we have to say.
Yeah,
but no one represents consumers. I mean,
well,
I guess you have to sue them, right? You have to bring lawsuits, which are expensive, and pay my kind there in order to get class action.
It is the responsibility of the Public Service Commission to take care of the consumers.
Except that it tends to be a transmission belt between the Public Service Commission and the utilities.
Is there a revolving door?
Yes, there is.
Do people that sit on these boards, do they
They tend to, when they come out of those, they tend to end up in very nice jobs at utilities somewhere.
Of course. You want a fox watching your own hen house, right? Particularly if, although I like Tim Kaine too much. We're going to have to focus on what he's doing. Maybe some of you folks can call in and find out what he's doing. I just can't think he would let this happen. Now, Do these people, does he have power to get rid of these people? We don't know.
Yes, he absolutely does. Just as Governor O'Malley in Maryland has turned over several members of the Public Service Commission in Maryland.
But it's been a tremendous fight to
it
get
has
rid of
been,
them.
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's a real battleground in Maryland because...
Over this issue, over Washington Gas?
Not over Washington Gas. In Maryland, it happened to be over Baltimore Gas and Electric, and the fact that their rates were suddenly going to jump by 72%, right?
And Washington Gas rates were going to go up 34%.
34%?
Right, in Maryland.
In Maryland?
No, I'm sorry, that was PEPCO, wasn't it? The Public Service Commission allowed the increase.
Of 34%?
34%. They tried to stagger it over several months.
But they allowed the 72%
Well, they allowed
of
the
BG&E.
72%, yeah.
Well, 72%
Well,
increase?
You know,
why?
Interestingly, the Public Service Commission in Maryland also approved this performance-based plan that Washington Gas has, where they get more money for doing better.
These same commissioners that O'Malley is trying to get rid of.
Right.
You say
But
more
if
money
they,
for doing
but if
better.
they, but if they
That's
don't
more
meet their
profit.
standards,
Yeah.
they don't give anything back.
There's no penalty.
There's no penalties.
So, okay, we already know that in Virginia, they're just grabbing the money and hoping to get it approved later.
Take the money and run.
In D.C. and Maryland, they're trying to get the money. And what they're saying is if we save money with this, we'll fund it to the consumers?
We'll split it with the consumer.
We'll split it with the consumer.
25-75. 25 for the consumer.
25%
75
for the consumer.
company. Yes.
So I give the company $100. If they ship the job to India, fire all these American workers, risk my life if I have a gas leak, give terrorists, my Social Security number and where the mapping lines is, and if they happen to make a profit, they'll give me $25 of my own money back?
Yeah, and I've got to...
Did I get this right? I mean,
you got it right, and it gets worse. I mean, it only gets worse because, Dan, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the workers in this position who they're going to get rid of, they got a tax break in order to hire. Do you want to tell that story?
They went to the District of Columbia. The call center used to be in D.C., and they were hiring people off welfare to work rolls, and they got tax breaks to accomplish this. These are the very people that are now being dumped if they outsource this work.
So you've taken people who were on the public dole, trained them, taught them a good profession. Now they've been there 5-6 years.
Put them back on the public dole.
Are they doing a good job?
They're doing an excellent job. Excellent job. And the gas company makes sure that they're doing an excellent job. And I can't stress this enough. The gas company is responsible for the safety and the service provided to the consumers in this area. And what they're doing is they're saying, I'm going to a third party, I'm going to outsource this to a third party. I'm going to give up control by and large. I'll let Accenture handle the problems. That's a scary thing to me because a company that's got 35,000 workers in India, more workers in India than they do in the United States, that's Accenture.
Already they do?
Yeah. By August of this year, they will have 35,000 employees. They'll be pretty much an Indian corporation. These are the people that are going to be responsible for making sure the safety and the quality of service that's provided to Washington consumers.
So other than the CEO maybe making $4.5 million from this,
maybe 5.
I'm not sure who else benefits. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. What do you think about outsourcing? How has it affected you? Give us a call. Let us know. Comment on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com. We'll be right back after this.
Some people in Fairfax County don't know what public access means.
Some think it's just another channel on the dial.
But it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors,
your friends,
or your family.
People who want to share ideas,
opinions,
cultures, lifestyles,
art,
sports, music,
events,
entertainment,
history,
science,
beliefs.
People who want to learn about television,
producing,
directing,
cameras, audio,
lighting,
editing, or radio, talk, music.
Whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
Whatever it is.
You can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people.
By the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one, between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's EarthShare, the simple way to find balance. EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, Support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. We're discussing outsourcing with two representatives of Local 2, the Office of Professional Employees Union, and they're Dan Dyers and Sarah Stow, and then we have Sam Weinstein, who is the National Assistant to the National Utility Workers Union. But we're talking about outsourcing specifically in the gas context, but also in the larger context. And of course, the company always says they want to do it for cost. They want to do it for us. They want to do it for the consumers. They're going to lower our gas bills, presumably. That's what they're telling the commission.
Well, actually, no.
They're not even telling the commission
When the Public
that.
Service Commission asked them directly if they could guarantee any savings by outsourcing, they said no, these are only potential savings. The only way we'll, and this is in the record, the only way we'll know if there are going to be any savings is go ahead and outsource and see what happens. I wish I was joking. I'm not.
No, just let's try it. Let's fire all these workers that have this long. Let's disrupt their lives. Let's throw consumers to the wolves, and we'll see if we save anything. We got a question on the blog. This is from Marty. Marty says, when outsourcing fails, how much does it cost to insource? Who is responsible for covering the cost of insourcing? I mean, they have to pay for it to hire these people back, right?
The rate makers will have to build that into the consumer's cost. The consumer will pay $37 million to outsource these jobs, and then whatever it costs to bring them back, they'll have to pay that as well.
And a substantial portion of this, Sarah, I understand, is actually severance pay.
Yes.
They're required by contract to pay these people when they fire them.
Yes.
So that's just lost.
$7.5 million.
Is just lost. And then one of the most interesting things I find here is $3 million to figure out if they want to outsource.
They call it advisory.
Who do they pay? Should I outsource? Should I not outsource? Okay, $3 million.
Time and effort on the part of the gas company executives to figure out if this is a good thing. Now,
do the executives get this money?
Well, no. The gas company gets it in the form of rate increases to the consumers, and they're going to keep the money even if they decide not to outsource.
Some of it will go to those executives, and some of it will probably go to consultants.
Consultants who will tell them, this probably won't work. It hasn't worked in the past. Or if you pay the consultant enough, then they tell you what you want to hear.
That's exactly right.
They're already going out and visiting these places. They've sent managers to Bangalore. They've sent managers to Canada. They've sent managers to the Philippines. I think, they're already going out to look at these call centers. So it's hard to imagine the amount of money that.
I mean, what role? This is a monopoly. It is a publicly regulated monopoly. The only people that can stop it is the Public Service Commission. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone's listening to this show, they can contact their local Public Service Commission, whether they live in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C., and say, what are you doing? Right. Why aren't you regulating these people? Right? We can all do that as citizens.
Yes, and you need to do it because we can't do it alone. If we don't get help from the consumers, very bad things can happen. And these people need to be contacting their politicians, the local politicians, the national politicians, anybody that you can. And please get a hold of your Public Service Commission. Get on the line and give us your name on that petition, because we want to take 100,000 petitions to the Public Service Commission.
On your website, I'm just curious, sos@wgl.com, is there a place where you can write directly to the email addresses of the Public Service Commission, or should you call them? Be really annoying on the phone. I mean, because I've done that sometimes. They're like, "No, I want to know why you're doing it. Who's the guy? What's his name? And why is he doing it? And how do we get him fired?" Yes, that's my question. How do you get your boss fired? I mean, should we say these kinds of things?
There's not a standard letter that you can just sign on to, but there are addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses for the public service commissions. There's also a petition that you can sign online that we get that will go to the commission from us.
Sam, let me ask you this. We talked about Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., but this program is streamed nationwide. It's going to be played on the Head On Radio Network on Tuesday, nationwide. Are there other instances outside of Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. where people need to get on the horn and call their public service commissions?
Well, I think everybody needs to be very vigilant, because I think everybody is looking at each one of these cases. When something like this comes up at Washington Gas, all the other utilities look. And as was pointed out before, de Graffenried, who's the CEO, is head of the American Gas Association, so he's going to be spreading the word. So I think everywhere, all your listeners should be looking at this and be asking questions of their local utilities and of their local public service commissions and making it clear that they don't want to do this.
Do you know of other examples? I'm curious, across the country. Is this the test case? Is this the one that you have to fight?
No,
or is it happening right now? I mean, California, someone mentioned.
Yeah, I mentioned California because they had shut down a series of payment offices in California.
Has that been fixed? I have listeners
we did
in
get it
California.
fixed, yes. We forced them not only to stop the closings that they were going to do, but to reopen some that they had already closed.
In the other states, we should be concerned
But
about.
they're always looking, even in California, they are always looking, and we are trying to make sure that it doesn't happen everywhere. That's one of the reasons that Utility Workers is helping the Office of Professional Workers, because we think we all have a vested interest in this.
It goes across the country. Ann from Fairfax County, Virginia, welcome to the Inside Scoop.
Thank you. If Accenture has done such an awful job as you say it has, then I would say that Washington Gas should know this and know that they have really messed up. So how could they allow a company with that reputation to be responsible where our safety is involved? And are the local newspapers going to be informed about all of this so that they can let the public really know what you know?
And that's a great question. Hang on the line. Let's start with, first of all, if Accenture has this long history that you're talking about, why is Washington Gas even considering them? Who wants to take that?
Lowest bidder?
They're the lowest bidder. It's that simple.
We went online, and we've been doing a lot of research. We have found case after case after case where contracts given to Accenture have failed. In England, the National Health Insurance system hired Accenture for 3.75 billion euros, I guess it is, but I was going to say pounds. They operated.
They do pounds still in Britain.
They worked on this contract for a while and collected $193 million out of a $3.75 billion contract. There were problems, and they said, look, we'll give you back $63 million if you'll just let us out of this. So Accenture is now out of it, and they had to give it to another company.
They just paid them to go away.
Exactly. We know this. The company must know this. I'd love to be able to answer your question and say, this is why the company is ignoring this.
I mean, they haven't even addressed this question, why they're considering Accenture versus any other company.
Why? I don't think they can responsibly do that. They have due diligence responsibility to make sure that the people are protected and that the quality of service doesn't deteriorate. With the information that we have, and I'm sure the company has, it doesn't make any sense at all why they would continue with this. I can't explain it.
It doesn't make any sense why they would outsource to anyone. Statistically, 70% of companies who outsource are unhappy with the service they get.
70%?
It either goes over budget or the quality isn't what they want. They're just not happy with it. It's not a good thing.
Let's go to Ann's second question, because obviously it's not just, I mean, I love to give the inside scoop and let people know things that are going under the radar, but why is this under the radar? Why isn't the Washington Post? They did a story on Walter Reed. Someone must have known that the rats were there, but no one was talking about it. The Washington Post does a big article, and suddenly George Bush cares about the troops. He didn't care about them before. The Army guy didn't care about them before. Why hasn't this been in local papers and national papers, national press?
If I may, we did a press release when we intervened in the rate case in the District of Columbia, and we did get an article in the business section, third page. It was a nice article, and not in any way knocking
the business section, third page.
Right, on a Saturday.
Whereas this on a Saturday, where anyone can tell you in the news, that's the least news day.
When we went for an injunction against the company, because you see, in the District of Columbia, the municipal regulations provide that the company has to have utility employed personnel handling this work. So we're seeking an injunction to stop it. When we went with a press release for that, we got no response from the Post. We've put in half-page ads in the Post, but there's a limit on how much we have to spend, how many resources we can put into the Post.
And does that answer your question?
Partially.
Partially. Go ahead then.
And I had heard that the Houston Chronicle has put out articles about what happened in Texas. If that's the case, any people in the public could look up Houston Chronicle and see what kind of stories have dealt with what happened in their state on Accenture. And I know there are other newspapers, but that's one I've heard of. But I think that there's got to be a way that we can somehow let the newspapers know, and they should write it because they want to, not because we have to pay them or somebody has to pay them.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I want to thank you for calling in and for being concerned. And maybe you could write a nice letter to the editor, to your local newspaper about this. We do have a few more comments on the blog. I want to get to them in just the really minute or two we have left. George wants to know, I understand work that is contracted out can be subcontracted out by the contractor. Who regulates the contractor? Who regulates the subcontractor?
In effect, nobody regulates the subcontractor. The Public Utility Commission regulates Washington Gas. If they subcontract the work out, they still have the responsibility. But yes, there is subcontracting of subcontracting of subcontracting.
And then the buck stops nowhere. One last question. This is from Beth. Beth writes, where outsourcing is concerned, is this a violation of the Home Securities Act? I have friends at Washington Gas whose gas service, gas line paperwork is already being given to out-of-company contractors. That alone bothered me. Now these contractors are using contractors. Are they in turn sending the work to New Delhi, India? Has some of this already happened?
Yes, it has. They sent out a lot of the billing work. It was brought back in because it just wasn't working for them, and they can do it in-house more efficiently and cheaper than they can by sending it out.
So they tried outsourcing already.
They did.
It failed already. They brought it back,
but
and now
some of the
they're
billing
trying
is still out there. Some pieces
still out
of it,
there.
yeah. And that's what she's referring to, I'm sure.
So now, last question: the Home Securities Act. I don't even know what that is.
I'm sure they mean the Homeland Security Act.
Oh, the Homeland Security Act. That one I do know. Yes. Would it be a violation? I mean, I happen to work in maybe I can answer that myself because I worked on the committee, and we tried to pass a bill that would be much more strengthening of our Homeland Security than was passed, and actually the president threatened to veto it. So that's all the time we have for tonight. Focus on outsourcing your own community because it's not just a question of Washington Gas. If you know what's going on, particularly when it comes to public utilities and public things, I think it's your job to try to stop it. This is Mark Levine, signing off.